So the title is, as you can see, Neurocreativity. Are you deliberate or spontaneous? Okay. So one of the funny things of the session will be to discover, or perhaps to rediscover, if you're fully deliberate or you're are on the other side. You belong to the spontaneous world. Okay. I'm gonna talk to some of the most important and recent discoverings in this field, in neurocreativity, and then I'm gonna go to the practical side of the session, just telling you about some exercises, habits to develop your, let's say, hidden side. Okay. So before starting with the slides, in silence. I mean, if you want to talk to your neighbor, do it, but in silence, try to define a chair. Try to make a definition, a good definition of what a chair is. Okay? Yeah, I think it's enough. Who thinks can tell us a good definition of what a chair is? Any of you? Yeah.
A chair is a tool on which you can sit alone.
A tool in which you can sit alone. Very good. Very good. Even if a chair is something quite simple, we find lots of difficulties, lots of problems to really define it. Because probably this definition, that's not bad at all. I mean, it's good, a good one, but could be used also for a stool or a bank or, well, a bank, you can also sit alone. Sometimes you sit with other people, but okay. So imagine if we have some methodological difficulties to define what a chair is. What happens when we dare to define something as complex as creativity, human creativity? I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to propose you two different definitions of creativity, just to center a little bit what creativity is and probably what it's not. Okay, this is very important. These definitions are from two colleagues of mine, neuroscientists, people that really have lots of years of experience in trying to understand which is this complex thing called creativity. This is a neuroscientist from New York University, Elkanon Goldberg, that says that's a derivative phenomenon, a product of many cognitive attributes, so memory, intelligence, and many other things that rely on many brain systems working together. So it's not a question of brain, left brain or right brain. Huh? Forget about that because it's a little bit old-fashioned. Working together, it may take many forms, and there are many paths to a creative outcome. It's a product of complex interactions between neurobiology and culture. That means our environment. It's not the same to work here in Google than, I don't know, I'm not going to say a negative example of another company, but as you know, it's very different. No? Culture, environment really affects what we do. Defines a linkage to a single brain structure. So creativity is not here or there. It's much more complex than this. Or simple genetic control. I think that's a quite complex, interesting definition from Elkanon Goldberg. Let's go to another one that I especially like, and that has to be perhaps a little bit more with the rest of my speech today. This is from Shelley Carson, an expert from Harvard University. Creativity is the ability, or the different abilities, working together as well, to combine. And try to remember this word, please, because in some 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I'm going to ask you a question that will have to do something with this verb, with this word, okay? To combine diverse elements or bits of information. What kind of information? Musical, bodily, kinesthetic, relational, whatever it is, okay? To form novel, original things, products, services, business models, new art or artistic concepts, whatever it is, that are in some way adaptive. So that are original, but at the same time are quite successful, or they're at least useful, okay? So this is the magic combination, to do something really different, really original, but at the same time, something that works, something that really is successful, okay? Well, perhaps some of you know this part of a Robert Frost poem. It's very famous. It's an American poet. Two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. We're gonna talk about two different ways. Deliberate way, spontaneous way, or if you want, two different paths, okay? Towards creativity. Try to guess. Meanwhile, I'm kind of detailing the two different styles. Try to guess to which style do you really belong, or to which style do you identify the most, okay? Some people, I don't know here in Google, for instance, I wouldn't dare to say if there are more deliberate people here or more spontaneous. I really don't know. But some people are creative being very deliberate. And what does that mean? First, a very important characteristic of deliberate people is that they're very good at paying attention, have an excellent level of mental attention. So if, for instance, if they say, I'm going to work for 2 hours doing this and that, they can do that. They don't get distracted easily, okay? This is very important, okay? For instance, imagine that you have to make a gift to a partner or to a colleague or whoever it is. If you're deliberate, you really try to control the creative process. You want to make a gift that's very original, so you think about that, okay? You start thinking. You try to control this process. Perhaps looking for information at the internet, or talking to other people that are very smart, making gifts or whatever. It's your plan. It's the same when we met 2 or 3 people in a room and we say, we have to brainstorm about this and we must have a solution before 1 o'clock. We try to control consciously the creative process, okay? Creativity is obtained and managed using knowledge and information. What do I know about this? Or if I don't know anything about this, I just try to look in books or in Google or many other places information for that, okay? So it's rational problem solving, planning, execution, task-oriented people, very task-oriented people, rational problem solving. You make plans and you, okay? This kind of mental operations. How do we know this? We know this because when using some neuroimaging techniques, like for instance, MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, or electroencephalogram, or positron emission tomographies, and many others, the brain of these people works in a very particular way, okay? I'm going to show you a couple of pictures to detail that. That's what we call hyperfrontality, because the brain activity is very concentrated on the frontal parts of our brain. So people that are deliberate, I mean, that's the same, that they are very hyperfrontal, okay? What else? Trial and error, for instance. You do this, you control what you do, you take note of the different steps, because you don't want to do the same mistakes in the next try, okay? This kind of mental processes, step by step, okay? This is deliberate people. Even without knowing what spontaneous is, how many of you would raise your hand, more or less identifying with the deliberate path, the deliberate way? Well, that is something like 50%. Something. Oh, okay, that's good. That sounds good. That sounds good. Okay. Well, this I don't want you to. I don't want to abuse from brain zones and brain areas, but just this is what's really important: the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. When you're in a deliberate moment in your life, trying to solve creatively a problem or trying to come up with lots of ideas, this zone here it's very activated, together with these other parts that form the executive control network. It's a part of our brain that does all the things that we just said before. Okay. And this is very important, guys. Of course, it's very important. I mean, we humans try to think and try to be very rational and try to look for, intelligent ways of solving problems. It's very important, okay? But there are also people that are really different. That's called the spontaneous people, okay? Perhaps some 15, 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't enough scientific evidence to give to this the same importance compared to the deliberate thing. But now we know that's more or less the same. For example, we know that because the brain energy that is used during a deliberate episode is exactly the same amount of energy that's used during a spontaneous episode. We can measure that. Okay, so this is something quite important to know. Well, these people have a poor level of attention. I mean, this doesn't mean that you cannot concentrate at all. I mean, but you have a poor level of attention. Meaning, I'm going to work with this for 2 hours, but then in 10 minutes, you just get up and do another thing and start thinking about whatever it is. Okay, so it's very different. You really have to make a strong effort to concentrate during 2 hours or the time you need. These people tend to daydream and mind wander. Daydreaming is, well, you let your mind flow, you start thinking on what you're going to do this summer, your holidays or your future plans. I mean, you see yourself in 10 years, what you're going to do, these kind of things. And mind wander is just to pass from one thing to another very quickly without rational control. And this is one of the reasons why deliberate and spontaneous people sometimes they don't understand each other. Okay, because deliberate people say, okay, we are here and now. Can you tell me, please, what do you think about whatever it is? And the spontaneous say, well, no, I was thinking when I was a child that, let's be serious. Okay, so it's a kind of debate between deliberate and spontaneous people. What else? Well, intentionally, due to sometimes genetic reasons or education reasons, etc., this dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, that's what DPC means, deactivates or just relaxes. Okay? And ideas, instead of trying to control the ideas in a brainstorming in half an hour, or I want to get a conclusion from what I'm going to give you as a gift, etc. Ideas come suddenly when we are, for instance, taking a shower, or walking in the street, or ideas come to us more than we have to make an effort to look for ideas. It's completely different. And apart from that, we cannot, spontaneous people cannot justify why they had this idea in this moment and the reasons of this idea. And that really puts deliberate people very nervous. Because they ask spontaneous people, but why did you have this idea? Well, I don't know, I was in the shower, just taking a shower, and the idea came to my mind. Okay, so two very different ways of understanding the world, even, okay? Well, there's a deactivation of the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, an activation of a very different brain network discovered recently, which is the default mode network. That has to do not with rational thinking, logics, and these kind of things that we just said before, has to do with radical imagination, has to do with visualization of scenarios, of future scenarios and past scenarios, and has to do with how you understand yourself, has to do with the construction of your ego. So it's completely different. Remember that Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Okay, it's a very famous sentence. And this is also known, this network is also known as the imagination network. So it's something completely different. Right? For instance, how is going to be Dublin in 500 years? I mean, we don't have idea, but we can imagine. We really can imagine. Children imagine very well. We adults, especially those of us who are adults. We have 500 years. I don't know. I mean, we really lost this capacity of being very imaginative. Okay. Well, this is called hypofrontality because the brain activity in the frontal areas just disappears and goes behind. Okay, so that's what's called hyperfrontality, and we know that using the same neuroimaging techniques as I told you before. Okay, so radical imagination, visualization of past, future scenarios, and also intuition. These people are very intuitive, much more than deliberate, and they take decisions without the intentional use of reasoning. Well, I took this decision. Why did you take this decision? A deliberate asks. And a spontaneous says, well, I don't know. Because I felt that, very strongly inside my heart. And deliberate, what? But can you tell me, please, the reasons? It's impossible. It's completely different way of, just understanding the world, etc. Okay? So, now raise your hand, those of you that feel that they are more spontaneous than. Wow. So very good. It's like some 50-50. That's Google. That's very good. That's very good. Very good. No, because believe me, I go to companies in which 98.5% are deliberate. And then they look at spontaneous people as if they were, so here it's half and half, and that's very good. Okay. Probably some of us are also quite balanced. I mean, we have a spontaneous part, but also try to combine with let's say, deliberate part. Okay. Well, this is the default mode network. Just for you to know this very different combination of different brain areas. It is a default mode network, okay? Well, you can see very clear here the differences. The left, we have a brain, a deliberate brain, let's say, activation of this lateral prefrontal cortex, especially in the left hemisphere, the frontal part, okay, and also other zones of the parietal and lateral cortex of the brain, especially the left part of the brain. But when we look at the brain activation state in the default mode network, this kind of lateralization left and right completely fades away, because we see that's activation. This deactivates. This is in blue now. That means completely deactivated. And different zones that are interhemispherical and medial areas of the brain get activated. That corresponds to the default mode network, the imagination network. So it's completely different. Both systems, both networks cannot be activated at the same time. Okay, this is very important because probably you get crazy if you try to activate both things at the same time. Okay. Then let me talk to you about something very interesting. I did my PhD about that with the help of this Shelley Carson from Harvard University. And this is something very interesting called cognitive disinhibition. Okay. The left part of the slide corresponds to the deliberate people. Okay. So we can see here a big area that is the unconscious brain. It's a big place in which we put everything. Okay. This blue area here is the conscious. It should be, just a dot. Because conscious is almost nothing. I mean, what are you thinking about now? Are you supposed to listen to me? And nothing else. Okay, so it's just a moment, it's just a second. Okay. As you can see here, there's a filter, a very effective filter that just allows, let's say, interesting information to go through. For instance, let's imagine that I want you to improve a glass of water. So let's make an exercise about how to improve a glass of water. Okay? For deliberate people, all of the contents here in the unconscious, only pass through this filter things that are directly associated with something like a glass of water. But if some of you, for instance, said, well, I'm thinking in a giraffe, I'm sorry, what? What has to do a giraffe with a glass of water? Please, let's be serious. Sometimes it is the behavior of very deliberate people, okay? Because as you can see, in radical spontaneous people, probably geniuses or not necessarily geniuses, but radical spontaneous people, this filter is very different. And this filter lets information that has nothing to do with a glass of water just pass through. It's not so bushy or dense as the first one. It's, more democratic. I don't know. More. Okay. So instead of start thinking about, I don't know, bottles, water, wine, things that are appropriate, that are, linked directly with this. Perhaps you think about the face of your grandmother. And what in the hell has to do the face of your grandmother with a glass of water, to improve a glass of water, okay? Now the question that I promised you. What has to do this, tell me, what has to do this with the second slide that we just saw? The Shelley Carson slide in orange, that was a word. What this thing here allows us to do in a different way? Combine. We can combine heterodox things instead of just putting all the, normal things together. This is a kind of neuroscientific justification of what we call out-of-the-box thinking. Okay. This is very interesting, guys. This really exists. I mean, this is a metaphor, or this is a draw, or sketch, but this really exists. We have a very sophisticated system of ways of filtering information in our brain, and we are using all the time. Okay. This is a very recent, from 2018, a very recent research, very serious one, that says that, well, it has been clearly shown that very creative people, highly creative individuals, that's a technical name that's used for that. I mean, people in painters, Googlers, doctors, whoever, but that tend to be highly creative. They do so. They are so because they tend to link the two different networks that we just analyzed: the executive control network and the default mode network, and that provides them kind of creative power. Okay, so they know when they have to be here to create some chaos in their mind. I mean, to imagine crazy things, to be very radical, very disruptive, to dream, to whatever you want. But they also know how to be here and when to evaluate good ideas, when to use criteria to decide if an idea is okay or not, and how to transform a crazy idea into something feasible. Okay, this is very important, this combination. So highly creative individuals have more connections between the two networks that we just saw that allow them to act this way better than the rest of us, the rest of me, perhaps not the rest of you, I don't know, but okay. So I would like you to do a little exercise. As far as your Googlers, you can use your mobile. But if you need some paper and a pen, if you prefer that. Guys, this is a difficult exercise. Yes. This is a difficult exercise, but I think that it's a good way of understanding how our brain gets blocked in a very difficult situation in which we really need a lot of creativity, and how we can understand to unblock this moment to act in a very different way. So before telling you what you have to do, what I suggest is you think different, change of language. I mean, think like a cat or like an elephant. I mean, forget about yourself, take LSD, whatever you want, but you have to do something different, because if not, you're gonna have really serious problems to do the exercise, okay? In the next slide, you're gonna see an animal, but be careful, not gonna be an easy animal. For instance, a dog, a cat, okay? Perhaps it's gonna be a kind of non-really existent animal, as for instance the unicorn, or okay, an animal with a name written just in case, okay, just to help you, and then a letter, but it's not going to be an easy letter. It's not going to be A, B, M, P, S, R, etc. Okay. Then in, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes, not more than that, what you have to do is to list as many words, little sentences, 2, 3 words, not as a sentence of 15 words, because then you lose time. Interjections onomatopoeias, whatever you want, but that contain this letter, contain, not start with necessarily, just contain this letter, and have to do with the animal. For instance, let me just put an example. If the animal is a cat, and then it's an M, you can say meow, you can say mouse, you can say whatever you want that relates with the cat and contains the letter at the beginning of the word or in the middle or at the end, just contains the letter. Okay, are you ready? Yes. Yes, are you ready? Yes. Okay, let's go. You have to get crazy, change your language, invent a new language, go to the Tibet. I mean, okay, I think it's time. Easy or difficult? Difficult? Who's especially proud of what he or she did and wants, please, to read? Yeah, okay.
Yetis like to excavate crossings and railroad tracks. They're exceptionally xenophobic and make zarring sounds when they attack each other. They're actually also exceptionally good at double crossing.
Very good, thank you. Thank you. Who else wants to, from this side here, someone who's really, okay.
Well, not really proud, but I just have X-Men. That was the
X-Men. Okay. Anybody else? No? Yes? Please, can you?
The two first one are boring, extraordinary, and extremely scary. And then don't ask me why I thought about Harry Potter. Okay, I'm a fan. So for the first movie, you had this huge troll that was like scaring all the students. I don't know if there is any fan here. And this huge troll made me think about this Yeti somehow. And I thought about a spell, Expelliarmus. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. You? Okay, another one, the last one? Yeah.
Yeti reminds me of X-Men, makes me anxious, wants me to take Xanax.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. This shows a kind of border between when we really get a block and we know have to do, we know what to do, etc., and when you just let our mind flow and forget about these kind of blockings, and we just let our imagination be completely free. Okay. Well, the last part of my speech today is: are you a searcher? I mean, are you like Alice through the mirror, and want to go to the other side to look for whatever it is there? Okay, if you're not a searcher and you say, okay, I'm very deliberate, that's good for me, I don't want to change, that's good. I mean, I'm not here to oblige you to go to the other side, of course. But perhaps you are one of these kind of people that says, well, I'm very deliberate or I'm very spontaneous, but I think that working in a place like this, for instance, I would like to go to the other side, take a walk on a wild side, as Lou Reed said many years ago. Then you can do lots and lots and lots of things. This is the practical part of this speech, okay? Of course, you don't have time to get into detail into which all of these practices. I'm going to emphasize 4 of them. That's going to be the last part of the speech. But we can practice mindfulness or executive control network meditation if you want to improve our attention, our capacity of concentration, etc. We can, I don't know, lots of things, okay? If you want to know into some of these things in detail, can you ask me for that in the last part, in the question part of the session? Okay. Let me put the emphasis on 4 things. These 2 first are for. This is for very deliberate people that want to transform into change a little bit. Okay. Take a forest bath. Any Japanese people here in the room? Is this Shinrin Yoku? How do you? Shinrin Yoku. Okay. This is something that Japanese people invented that consists in going to the forest and walk and smell the trees and smell the flowers and the grass and dirty your hands with the ground and different things. And it's very good. I do it a lot, and it really unblocks lots of things and helps me thinking in a creative way and trying to solve problems, etc. You have to go to the forest. I mean, you can walk anywhere, but to do a forest bath, you better go to the forest because it's not a forest bath. I mean, so it reduces stress, cortisol levels decrease, boosts immune functioning, improves mental performance and creativity. This is research from David Strayer from the University of Utah. Shelley Carson says that increases our brain power in the absorb brain set that's related to mind wandering and these kind of things that we just said, and makes you feel happier. That's very interesting. So it's a very easy to do practice that I really. It's not a question of going there with an obsession. Have to go to the forest because I have to. No, this is not the attitude, guys. Okay, you better go there just and let your mind flow. I mean, then solutions will appear or not. But it's very interesting, okay? Second thing is provocations and radical experimentation. For people that are very deliberate, this is always a good thing to do. Provocations is something that Edward de Bono invented. He also invented this word PO, that means provocative operation. That means challenge a convention. I mean, shoes have soles. So let's think about a shoe without soles. And I think that during Google, here you're masters doing that. Challenging the conventions that already exist, okay? So if I put a very humble little bit of sand to improve that, that's gonna be a success, okay? Then once you have the crazy idea, shoe without holes, hotel without rooms, here you are, a hotel without rooms. This is not a fake picture. This is something that already exists in Switzerland. So instead of putting a room in a hotel, they put the room in the middle of the forest. So they do the first technique and the second at the same time. Okay. And then perhaps you get with something that's quite crazy or quite difficult, absurd, nonsense, etc. Have to experiment. Make lots of mistakes. In Spain, for instance, well, I'm a Catalan, but in Spain, in Catalonia, we don't like to make mistakes. And we are really afraid of making mistakes because there's always a boss. Then people don't like to make mistakes. But if you want to innovate, you have to make lots of mistakes. Okay, make mistakes, prototype. What design thinking, as you know, tries to tell us. Okay, this is very interesting. I have to feel very free doing this, because if you just take care of, well, what others will think, my boss. For instance, as you know, companies in general don't have experimentation places or experimentation, facilities to work with materials, to prototype. I mean, this is really dramatic, okay? Now, for deliberate, for spontaneous that want to go to deliberate, the first thing is practice mindfulness. I know that's something that you also do here, perhaps not all of you. So if you're deliberate and you want to go to the other side, do it, please. Because there's a lot of scientific evidence that especially improves our attention and concentration capacities. And this is very good, because if not, some spontaneous people are all the time just daydreaming and thinking about, very, very, disruptive things, but they don't know how to really make them real. So they need a lot of help in this. No? And also nurtures courage and resilience. This is very important. Mm-hmm. There's a very interesting research in this university. And enhances divergent thinking as well. So it's also good for spontaneous. Okay. And finally, for those of you who are a little bit spontaneous and gain the reputation of being always distracted and never delivering things on time and these kind of things, just checklists. Checklisting, something very easy, but it's very important. I have two very happy moments in my life: when I do yoga and when I finish a checklist. The rest is absolutely irrelevant. When I finish a checklist, guys, I start even singing, or because I just wake up in the morning. Wow, I have to do 7 things today. 3 of them I really hate, but when I did them all, I'm very happy. And if I do this and then my session of yoga, wow, I almost fly. So they provide protection against stupid mistakes or not strictly necessary mistakes. Help us with a huge volume and complexity of things that we must do every day. Enhance our planning skills. Avoid unnecessary new trial and error procedures. Lots and lots of things. Okay, so. Two and two practices among these many other ones that you just. There are interesting things here. For instance, these uncontrolled body movements of control, and many other interesting things. Okay. Don't you feel a little bit more creative? Thank you very much, Googlers, and thank you. Now, I'm at your disposition for any questions or observations or comments you may have.
Thank you for your talk. It was actually very interesting to see the third point on the mindfulness. And what I wanted to ask is that there were studies correlating mindfulness to reduced activity of DMN outside of active tasks. And in general, there are studies on that meditation, mindfulness, and in, general Buddhistic term, awareness is improving the quality of life of people that practice it. So would that in any way correlate, were there any studies results in a better quality of life general versus being spontaneously creative? We have studies saying that mindfulness and meditation in general is good for people. So would that basically mean that being deliberately creative results in a better quality of life for a person?
No. Not at all. Because if you're not deliberate, you can also do meditation. There's another kind of meditation that's more visualization. That's very different from mindfulness. In mindfulness, as probably all of you know, you have to concentrate on something. Your breathing, a mantra, whatever you want. But you can meditate in many different ways. Vipassana meditation is quite different from that, and many other kinds of meditations. So the opportunities for being happy and having a happy life are for both. As far as I know, any of these practices relate with more happiness directly, because you can do many other things to compensate that. Okay, thank you for your question. Another one here.
Do you think we are born creative but become deliberate, or tend to become more deliberate once we grow up? And what's your take on that? Thanks for all the recommendations and tips. And do you have additional stuff that you would recommend or think which would embrace creativity even more?
Okay. Yes. I mean, when we are children, we are much more spontaneous and deliberate. Children have a lot of imagination. But social institutions like school or family but it depends on the family you have. If you paint on the wall one day when you're 3, and your mother said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Bluff. Then you get deliberate in 1 second. But if your mother or your father or both say, "Oh, look at what Christina did in the wall. That's nice. That's nice. You're going to be a fine artist. I mean, congratulations. Next time, mom and dad will buy you good papers to do the same. Without dirtying the walls. But yes, in general, we tend to be forced to be more deliberate in general. Yeah, that's true. And that's why some people have to. Imagine you're working in a company like this. And your boss or your whoever it is says, "Hey, I want you to have fresh ideas. I have to think out of the box." Well, what I have to do? I mean, then you have to do this change. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. This is all very interesting. You said some people can have friction if someone is deliberate and someone is spontaneous. Can this happen inside one person? Like, can you have a deliberate side and a spontaneous side and have like uncertainty or stress because those two are fighting with each other?
That's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yeah. Yes. Some of us are quite balanced. 60-40, 70-30. I mean, 50-50, it's quite difficult, but and it's good to everything is good. The only thing is that if you're 90 spontaneous and 10 deliberate, you're all the time, looking at the clouds and then and if you're the contrary, you're 90% deliberate. I mean, a little bit, So it's good to be in the middle, and it's good to. What many people tell me is that they are very deliberate when working, and they are spontaneous in their private lives. That's a kind of tragedy because. I think that companies should take profit of this thing. But it's normal to be quite balanced and to have moments in which you feel like much more spontaneous and moments in which you feel like more deliberate. It's good. But you have to have to make sure that when you need to be deliberate and when you need to be spontaneous. If you do the contrary, then you're going to have problems, okay?
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very nice.
Thank you.
One of the topics in your book is also about teamwork. So my curiosity comes from you're saying deliberate people and spontaneous people have difficulties understanding each other. Would it be better then to have a team that's mostly out of deliberate people, spontaneous people, or a combination of them? How does that work, and what's the impact there?
That's a very good question. Well, all of the questions were very good, but especially like especially like this one. Because imagine that you say, I'm very deliberate, I want to go to the other side, but at the same time you're kind of lazy person that doesn't have the energy to do this change. Then there's a very easy solution. Work with different people together. I mean, yes, teamwork has to, I mean, an innovation team or something like that has to have a lot of diversity. Men, women, experienced, non-experienced, deliberate, spontaneous, from Barça, from Real Madrid. Of course, visual people, rational thinking people, but with a common thing, that to listen to each other, to respect the perspectives that don't coincide with yours, and this capacity of integration. In Stanford University, they say, build on the ideas of others, instead of focusing on your ego and all the time discussing and all the time trying to win the other part, okay? So that's very important.
Yeah, following up on that, are there frameworks or methods in order to make this integration more effective?
What do you mean exactly?
So you're saying like you got to listen to each other, of course, and be open-minded, and then those are, of course, two important things you always need to do in teamwork. But are there specific methods where you can make sure that deliberate people and spontaneous people, when they work together?
I think that it's very important to put on the shoes of the other person.
Okay.
Imagine that two engineers and two anthropologists. Engineers look at the world in a genuine way that's not at all the same way in which anthropologists look at the world. But let's tell to these engineers to put in the shoes of anthropologists and the contrary, because then you just have a broader vision of everything and you just start collaborating and integrating solutions. Thank you.
So I'm interested in the biological side of things. So as far as I could understand from looking up online, this also relates to blood flow and things like that. So because you mentioned that this was recently discovered, this separation between these two networks, are you aware of the research relating to medical treatment of these things? Because I'm having a lot of problem switching from spontaneous to deliberate side of things. So I just keep losing focus and things like that. So I'm interested in.
Well, this is also a very interesting question, but I guess I don't have really time to go deep in it because, well, very briefly, some researchers discovered that people tend to cognitive disinhibition. Some people tend to cognitive disinhibition, kind of a natural way, because they have change in their ADN, in their DNA, that are similar to the changes in the DNA chromosomes that have people affected with schizophrenia or other mental illnesses. So, well, this is interesting to know. So, as a conclusion, we should say you have to be a little bit crazy, but take crazy as something nice, okay? Not something. You have to be a little bit crazy to be highly creative, because it includes this way of understanding reality in a very disruptive way, okay? So when you feel that you are like in the middle or in one of the extremes, I mean, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, what you have is try to be at the right time with the right way of thinking, and that's gonna be all. Thank you.
I guess going back off of the question of kind of the nature versus nurture theme, how much does your environment impact your baseline tendency of either being spontaneous or deliberate from what you've observed?
A lot. Well,
directionally, yeah, but like, is there more behind the a lot? Like things that we can do to control that environment? I know some of the recommendations you had were like going to the forest to change that environment, but more relatably, without the woods.
As we said in the first slide, creativity is at the end a combination of your neurobiological system and the environment, everything that surrounds you. So I think that you are in a very good place. Google is a good environment to work with creativity and innovation and these things, of course. If it's not your case, I mean, you have to change the company. I mean, you have to go to another place, because you won't change your company easily. Believe me, I'm 58 and I know about that. So you have to try to look for places in which you can make mistakes, in which your bosses encourage you to make mistakes, intelligent mistakes, of course, in which you can experiment, in which you can do things in a very different way, in which you can dialogue and discuss a lot with people, in which you talk to customers and to stakeholders to try to improve products, etc. I mean, all these practices that depend on the culture of the organization, etc., help in really having a this kind of environment that helps in innovating, etc. I don't know if you know a company in Silicon Valley that's called IDEO. They work in design thinking, etc. A person from Andorra, that's a very little country that's between France and Spain and Catalonia, told me, well, when I started working at IDEO, I didn't consider myself being a creative person. But wow, it's so easy to become a creative person there, because everything is at your disposition to just make you a creative person. That's the contrary that happens in the 99% of companies in the world. Perhaps I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you don't find these opportunities, these facilities, this culture, this mentality in many other places. Okay, I really enjoyed the sentence that's written in one of the walls here. That's I don't remember now, but that's the thing about the worst thing that you can say is to that's the way the things have been always done. Blah, blah, blah. I have a book published with a colleague that's called in Spanish, Si funciona, cámbialo. Change it if it works. So that means even if it works, we live in such a frantic, crazy world that we have to start changing even what works. Okay, so environment is very important. Yes.
So thank you very much, Frank, for coming. Thank you, everyone.